Plays, musicals, comedies, and the classics. Today's guests have performed them all on stage. Hello, I'm Howard Sherman, Executive Director of the American Theater Wing, and joining me today are 5 actors with both varied and impressive credits. Bobby Cannavale, Renée Elise Goldsberry, Judith Light, Lia Williams, and Tom Wopat. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to start by asking a question with a couple of ground rules. Not including anyone on this panel, not including people in shows that you were in. And this is protection for all of you. I'm curious if you could tell me about a performance that you've seen that particularly impressed you and why.
There are many, and but I think just for the sake of time, I would pick Viola Davis in Fences. I'd have to say that watching her performance and the simplicity of it and the complexity at the same time was really stunning to me. And just what she did without saying a word that expressed her love for this man and her own process and her own transformation within the body of that play. I'd have to say I thought she was really extraordinary, and it stunned and surprised me, not because of her, because she's a wonderful actress, but just watching that kind of process. I don't know if you guys saw that too, but I thought she was really, really extraordinary. To be able to say something without saying a word, I think is incredibly difficult and terribly exciting.
Probably the first thing I ever saw in New York, I was 14. I saw Danny and the Deep Blue Sea down at Circle Rep, and it blew my mind. And I just wanted to be John Turturro. Incredible performance. It was just 2 actors on stage, him and June Stein, and it reminded me of people from where I grew up, and it sounded like real people to me, and it just it made me feel like I could do it, and I'd never seen something that explosive before, so close to me, and it felt really real and dangerous. Super dangerous.
Was it the uniqueness of the show compared to other kinds of shows you'd already seen, or was it?
Yeah, well, I was a kid and I'd only done, I was steeped in local community theater and church theater, and I'd done Man of La Mancha and The Music Man and Flowers for Algernon, so I'd never seen anything like Danny and the Deep Blue Sea on stage, and that's where the danger part came in. I was scared. I really thought that guy was going to come off the stage and kill us all. It was exciting.
How old are you?
14.
Renee?
There's always this question about, the technique of acting, and does it change, based on the medium? It's film, television, theater, musicals, straight plays. And I've seen not a million, but several wonderful, moving performances. But I remember when I saw Laura Benanti in the revival of 9, that it just answered a huge question for me, because I felt that she was so simple, and it was I think a reaction that could have lived and been truthful and moved me in any of the mediums on stage, in a Broadway house, in a huge Broadway house. I was in the back, and I just felt her. I just saw her respond and listen and speak in a way that I thought really transferred to all of them, and because it was so powerful, and so much more powerful than any form of projection because of the size of the house, I just was like, oh, I get it. And it was really educational for me, and it answered a huge question.
Tom?
Well, I'm going to be cheap and obvious.
Please do.
I'm picking a film, the film Ali, and I was watching it and watching it and watching it, and I'm thinking, Howard Cosell, and who the hell is that? And I never knew until I saw the credits as John Voight playing Howard Cosell.
Brilliant.
And to me, there's something about that where you've seen a guy, how many things have we seen him in? But unrecognizable, and not just with the disguise, but just the whole manner of speech and physicality, and that kind of stuff intrigues me.
Lia?
Well, it's a toss-up actually between Harold Pinter, who I saw 4 years ago performing
Nail
Craps
dropper.
last Beckett's play at the Royal Court, and he had cancer and he was in a wheelchair, and it was just the most. He was an astonishing actor, and it just wasn't acting. It sort of became so transparent and shocking and just
He's incredible.
incredible.
I'm so glad I got to see him on stage because
Oh, yeah.
I love his plays, but I just lucked out. And they did that Lincoln Center summer of his plays, and he was in this play. It's like a two-hander about a guy who's torturing somebody.
Oh my God, yeah, No Man's Land.
It's a short play.
Yes.
Oh man, he was awesome.
Terrifying.
Terrifying.
When he acts, it's like he walks on razor blades. It's so edgy and dangerous, and it's terribly exciting.
Yeah, you're talking about this thing that I think is so, both of you talking about this thing of acting or being. And when you see a performance of someone being
Right.
and not doing, it's astonishing. I think we're all
Yes.
transformed and lifted up in a way that takes us to another place. And all of a sudden, it was what we were talking about earlier, is that sort of oneness that happens with you and the audience in that moment in time. And there is this person that is giving you this experience. And I don't know how you do that, but when you see someone do it, you know it.
It's like they become transmitters. It's
Yeah.
like they just transmit something from the page through this electric wire to the audience. It's just, it sort of becomes a whole different thing.
They get out of
But,
the way.
Right.
But it's Margot Fonteyn, actually, when she danced Juliet with Rudolf Nureyev. I was a child, and it's actually the thing that started me acting, because I was absolutely astonished by what I was watching between the two of them, for starters, but also she became this 14-year-old child. And although she was the most graceful, beautiful, amazing dancer, she was an actress beyond measure. And she was 40 or older than 40 when she played that role with Rudolf Nureyev. And I remember thinking, I think I was 10 or something, and I remember thinking, how did that happen? And it awoke my curiosity about what actually acting is, and or what performance is. And
Well, then it raises my curiosity. You're talking about how much you enjoy seeing someone truly become, indeed submerge into the character. Is that something you feel happens to you when you perform?
On a very good day.
Right.
That's always the goal. That's always what you're trying to feel, because you know the difference when you're watching it, and you know the difference when you're doing it, if you're doing it, or if you are, experiencing it.
And it's that tricky thing too, where you'll come off and you'll go, wow, that felt great. And
Right.
then, if you have really good people around you who look at you and say, no, no. I took over for Kathleen Chalfant in this play, Wit, and I was doing, and one night it was like, I was there. I was absolutely there. And I turned to my manager afterwards and I said to Herb, I said, hey, what about it, huh? How about tonight? And he said, oh, no, I don't think so. He said, baby, that play was 3 minutes longer tonight. He said, so it's that really fine line of not being out of yourself and saying, oh, this is really going well,
Right.
or that thing of just being there and then letting the gods sort of take you. It's a
I
very
think
fine
you
line.
kind of hit a full range too sometimes. I mean, you're talking about being a conduit for the material to get to the audience, and to really. I mean, I'm not a good enough actor to act some of the stuff that I'm doing on stage. So I mean, I got to go there. I got to go deep, and I got to go painful. But then there's days when that just doesn't come, and I think that's when you show your professionalism of how to approximate what what you do on a great day,
Right.
and do it on an average day.
Right.
To keep your level up there at least a full 75%.
And it depends on so many things, as we were
Right, right.
saying.
Yes.
It depends on
Laundry.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. How did you trip up on your way in? Did you have a bad phone call, or is the actor that you're working with, or the actress that you're working with, is the dynamic? What's the dynamic there today? And then you've got who's in the audience,
Right.
and how did they travel to the theatre?
I know.
And it's kind of a composition of all of those things, and every now and then, quite miraculously, they all come together. It's very rare, And then you get this kind of alchemy, don't you?
I was doing Catered Affair, which is about a family relationship, and I look out one day, and in the second row is my brother's ex-wife.
Oh my God.
And I hadn't seen her for like 5 years. And there she is. I'm going, well, that's going to inform today.
Yeah,
It's the beauty of the process.
That's
too.
fun.
There's
It's
nothing
fun.
Like, working in the theater. I mean, I trust very much the process of 4 weeks of being locked in a room with these same people,
Yeah.
and then the 3 weeks of previews, if you're lucky and you have a lot of previews, to like
Or 6
shut
months
it out,
like
man.
Spider-Man.
Or 6 months like Spider-Man. But the
what do you
whole
mean, shut
shut
it out?
outness of, I don't know. It's just me and the people I'm with.
Yeah.
And that's nirvana to me, just
Yeah.
being
Yes, exactly.
completely in the world that we've been creating and trusting it and not worrying about them.
And it's so interesting, we were talking about this beforehand, is that there is this living, breathing organism in this moment in time with these people, like now, these people and those people that are there. And the optimal is, it's not just the phrase give a performance for nothing. We are in a service business. So they're there with us, and that moment in time, that moment, nowhere else, nothing else.
That's it, nothing else.
And
And
you-
they're peeking in.
Yes, and
Yes,
we
exactly that.
give them that experience, and then they exchange that energy with us. There is nothing like that.
Yeah.
But it's interesting what he said about when it's not. I mean, because I think in some form we're all perfectionists a bit. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the pain in it, is that when it's not that, and how do you deal with it? Like he said, and I think there's a lot of forgiving yourself that has to go on.
Yeah.
You have to, and then a lot of trusting of the other people, and then a lot of trusting the actual words. That in spite of where I'm at this particular moment, it's still going to be communicated to these people.
The thing
and it's
too, I
okay.
think sometimes, in vocal performance, I've been in a situation where late in the set and I'm just pooped. But I get to a song and all of a sudden I'm singing it tired. And I feel myself singing it tired, and I'm thinking, well, that's kind of interesting,
Exactly.
actually. And you discover a whole different thing. Or if somebody has pissed you off before you
Right.
go on stage. And one time Bernadette's passing me in back of the theater, she says, "You're still mad at me, aren't you?"
But there's
'Cause
something
we had-
interesting about musical performance, which is you have to follow a certain pace. You don't have necessarily the latitude to add a few minutes as you.
I didn't either. That wasn't latitude, that was indulgence.
But does musical performance or musical backing on a show, does that help you always find your way through?
Well, there's a lot of other things that are involved besides tempo. I mean, when I'm talking about, tired or angry or that kind of thing, that you can do any of those at the same speed.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I find that I'm sort of lost in, of the day or the whatever, and particularly this happens with Lombardi, there are only 6 of us in the cast, and so there's a lot of energy exchange among us before we start the show, and that is incredibly helpful to me to get to shut out, get rid of my day,
same
come
here.
present, really love them so deeply. But I also know that if I'm lost in the play or I'm somewhere else or I see my ex, whatever, that all of a sudden, if I look there, I'm home. I'm right there.
totally.
Dan Lauria talks about that all the time. You
Right.
just look right there,
Right.
and it's like, oh, there you are.
Right.
And
Right.
that helps me tremendously.
I'm a big proponent of the 5-minute hug.
Yeah, I love that.
I love
yeah.
it. We do it, and it's important. Look at each other. And we
Does
go,
it matter to you, I mean, like the percentage of your audience that are sports fans? Doesn't that make a difference in what?
Oh, that's such a good question. The magic of that is that many of these people have never been to a play before.
Right.
And so all of a sudden, this new group of people has entered the world of the theater. And it has this combination. And so I've often said this is the people's play. So yes, because they are experiencing something they've never experienced before.
I'm a Packers fan. It made me cry.
It's got one element, I think, though, to what the theater's always been about. And we have the same situation. I mean, I've never been in a play where more than half the audience is probably it's their first time to the theater.
course,
And they might be coming to see Chris Rock, and 2 minutes into the play, they're in
forgot.
the play.
Yeah.
They've forgotten.
Yeah.
And we're doing a play that takes place in Times Square today. We're doing it in Times Square. There's sounds of subways and people on people and ambient noise, and these people are talking back to the play. And when I tell you it doesn't interrupt anything, it's part of the cacophony of what's happening on stage, and it's a beautiful thing. And they're all, afterwards, they're telling us, we've never been in the theater before.
Yeah.
Right.
That's exciting. That's so exciting, man.
It is. I mean, we
Guerrilla
have people
theater.
come. Yeah. I mean, we have people come in Packers uniforms and Packers shirts and jackets, and you know, they're totally connected in a way that thrills me, because that means to me that they're going to come see another play.
Right.
They're going to come back again because they've had an experience, and isn't that what we all want them to do, is to have that experience of coming to the theater? I mean, I see Tony Kushner, and I've seen Angels in America so many times, and I just think, I want them to go see that. Right. I want them to have that experience.
Yeah, there you go.
know?
Well, you're
And,
breaking
and,
them in.
and where they go away talking about the thing that they've just seen, rather than, you know, talking about where they're going to have dinner.
Right.
Is a great thing, because with Arcadia, I mean, you do sense that there's an anxiety in the audience who think that they might not understand, you know,
Right.
thermodynamics and
Right.
heat exchange. But actually, what they realise through watching the play is that it's about people and relationships and passion and compassion and love, and all of these other themes come into it. So at the end of the evening, they feel like they've had this huge experience. And you can, you know, you get blogs and letters and things from people who go away discussing it for days, and sort of referring it to their own life experiences.
That's great.
And that's what good theatre is, and I think that's what it should demand.
Well, do you all hear from audiences? I mean, either at the stage door or letters, and how does that affect you?
We had, I'm in Good People Now, and it's this brilliant play by David Lindsay Abaire, and it's, you know, it's discussing, you know, everything that's relevant today, you know, class issues, you know, issues with, you know, paternity and a little bit of race issues in there, and we had a performance for high school students a couple weeks ago, all of them 17.
Those were awesome.
Oh yeah, I saw them. I saw them outside.
Did you?
Yeah, it looked
was,
amazing.
and you know, I've done performances like that before with other productions, and the joke typically is they'll laugh, you know, every time we curse, and that'll be it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Or you make a sex joke.
Or a sex
Right,
joke
right,
or whatever, and that'll be
drugs,
exactly sex drugs,
Right.
exactly. But what's fascinating about this experience is the play is kind of centered around this moment that happened between the two lead characters when they were 17, and we didn't realize it until we were in the play that we had an audience full of 17-year-olds. There's even a line in the play where he's like, no one's 17. There's another line, he's like, everyone's an idiot when they're 17. I mean, you know.
They went crazy, right?
No, they were just listening, but it was, I felt, you know, I think the audiences, specific audiences, teach you about your play. That's what's so fascinating.
That's so true.
I mean, we learned so much. I mean, even I'm not in the first act of my play, so I listen to it often, and I'm listening to it, learning. I just, because I'm hearing it through them. I mean, and that's kind of what happens when you have someone in the audience, like your father is there, or your whoever.
Right.
You're listening it, you know, through their ears and hearing. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, that's so true.
Yes, you know what I mean? So that's the fascinating thing, is how a group of people that's there can inform you, can teach you about the work you've been doing for 3 months.
Well, and you hear things in a way that you've never have
Exactly.
heard them before, and I love that they, you know, that the 17-year-olds come, because they are our future.
Yeah.
They're the ones
exactly.
that are going to be like you, that are, or you and God, you know, many of us go when they're 10 years old,
And the
when they're
thing
14
is,
years
you
old.
don't have to pander to them. You don't
No,
have to
they're
talk
so
down to
smart.
them.
They were so smart. I mean, I was wrong when I said that's what they would laugh at. I mean, they did laugh at those things.
Right.
But the
there's more,
5
yeah.
minutes of, I mean, it was actually hard to
Did
go
you
back to a
talk back
normal.
after 'em?
We did,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, good.
And they're so smart, but you know, it was a painful come down to go back to the normal audience after them, because 5 minutes we had to wait for them to respond to some of the moments in our production. I mean, and it was talk about having to go deep. I mean, you're either going to break out laughing on stage, staring at your, you know, fellow actors because you can't believe the feeling of that energy is like nothing you've ever experienced. We had to really go so deep just to stay in it,
Right.
to survive that energy. It was brilliant, and it was a gift to us, I thought, you know?
In college, I did a workshop production of Virginia Woolf, and our director, took us to a halfway house, to an alcoholic halfway house, to do a performance, like a
Oh, my
community
God.
function. And there is so much drinking in that play.
Oh, to settle
And
that.
so, I mean, this crowd was on the edge of their seat the whole time. It was amazing. I'm talking about informing what your
It's just like an
material is.
unbelievably intimate experience going to the theater.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
and for kids and for anybody who comes to the theater for the first time, I think it's they feel something. There's something there that they haven't felt before that I think spurs conversation, and it spurs a desire to want to have that experience again, because there's no other experience like it.
Yeah,
You don't have that
there's
experience when you go to a movie. You don't have that experience when you're watching a television show. It's tremendously intimate. You don't want to disturb what's going on.
Right.
And so you invest in them, and you
Right.
feel that investment. It's like an ethereal thing, but you feel it when you're up there.
And it's so, at the same time, it's so human. I mean, we get to investigate, we get to show them what a human being is psychologically in a way that they may never get to see. We get to investigate our own selves as we're doing the work.
Right.
I mean, it is like no other art form and no other experience. It's incredibly spiritual to me and incredibly human.
Incredibly spiritual.
Right, right.
On a good day.
Spiritual for different reasons on a bad day.
Don't you find you want to move yourself and tap yourself into that all the time? Sometimes it's really difficult.
It's urgent and crucial.
Yeah.
And it has to really live, doesn't it? I mean, I think governments everywhere should be investing in it.
Well, because, you know, politics and things like that can sort of keep people at odds with each other. There's a right and a wrong. This is an expression of humanity in this moment in time where there's no right or wrong, there's no polarization. All of a sudden, everybody gets to come together. They may
Full
not agree on the
community,
play,
all
they may
all
not
people.
like it, but yeah, it's full community.
You're talking about the coming together of the cast with the audience. I want to come back to a couple of comments that we went past fairly quickly about the coming together of the cast with each other every night. You spoke about energy exchange. You spoke about the 5-minute hug. I once was privileged to be invited into a prayer circle before a performance of a show. Are there either personal rituals or group rituals that help you get together so that when you all go out, you are together every night?
I think it varies on the production. You know, I mean, presently in a big musical like Catch Me If You Can, it's kind of impossible to get everybody out together. I think one of the things that does help, I mean, in the old days, everybody go out drinking afterwards. Not so much anymore. I mean, some of the younger guys do, but like, for example, in our situation, we had a softball game yesterday, the Broadway Softball League.
That's right.
And that kind of thing
think we beat
really, Billy Elliot beat us. But it was our first game and we
kids?
hadn't had any practice. Yeah, they can really play ball.
Ballet girls can hit.
But that kind of thing is a huge bonding thing. And really, I mean, to be able to do something social that's away from the performance can be a big help, I think.
For me, one of the things that I always make a point of is that every night before the show at half hour or just a little bit after that, I go up and into all the guys' rooms and I just hug them and check in and see how their day was and all of that. So that's a real preparation for me. And then at 15, I go in and I sit and I be with Dan and we sit and talk about our day and just, you know, like folk and like that. And then I do some yoga and I do some meditation and stuff, and I have some pictures in my dressing room of people that are long gone that I sort of connect with.
Does that pattern of checking in, you're in a show where you are the only woman,
Yes.
and you and Dan play husband and wife, and in a way you take on varying parental roles to the other characters in the show. So is that practice dictated by the show that you're in, or is that something you tend to do in any show?
I tend to connect with people. I'm a people person and I like that, but I think Tom is correct. I think it happens to have happened in this show. I mean, they call me Mom and they call him Pop, so there is that parental kind of thing, and that just grew out of having had a tone set by Tommy Kail, our director, and by our playwright Eric Simonson. That evolved over time. It was that 4 weeks in the room. It was the intimacy of working together, and it grew out of that.
We do exactly the same. We sort of flip between dressing rooms to each other and chat about, you know, very ordinary things that the day has thrown before us. And but we all feel, because the play is just so completely glorious, we're all very, very close. It does depend, doesn't it, on what the play, what energy the play has and what the play is about as well, as to how you relate to the people within it. And you are right, it does depend on each production, how you deal with the bit before you go on stage.
Because Renee, as you said, you're not in the first act.
Right.
Everybody else is.
That's
Right.
scary, isn't it?
You know what?
Because I'm not in the first scene.
Oh,
You
you're-
kind of wait. You've got this waiting period.
Yeah, I've done that before where I've had kind of one great act and that was it. And I always like it when it's the second because people remember you. But you know, it can be scary because you have to kind of catch up and jump onto a moving train. But in this particular piece, because I think it's so brilliantly constructed, I feel like I inherit a lot. You know what I'm saying?
that's great.
So it actually serves me because I feel like I walk into
They're setting
something
it
that's
up for
already
you,
done.
right?
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
right,
I'm getting laughs that were
Totally.
set up by other people, other actors, and things like that. And so it's and I'm just so I feel so sure of the piece and the power of it that it's there's nothing to fear actually, and that is unique. I have to say,
Right.
people, I feel like I feel like it's easy. I mean, easy in a certain way. I mean, there are things that we've already said that are very difficult about it, but this particular production for me compared to others, and I was wondering why, and I think it's because there's not really a moment of dread in it for me. Like I've been in so many productions where there was one particular moment that I had to make it through so I could kind of sigh.
Relax, yeah.
That's the sign of great writing.
I think so. There's and there are huge, wonderful moments that
And
really.
great actors, too.
Yes.
Yes,
Other
Oh,
fellow
absolutely true.
Fellows.
So I do kind of, I feel like I literally just walk on and it's kind of done for me and it seems very easy and wonderful. But yeah, it can be different. It's just this particular production that is that.
Is there a benefit to working with actors that you've worked with previously?
I've been lucky. I've been able to work with a few people that I've worked with a few times, directors and actors, and yeah, I mean, I haven't been in a situation yet where I was like, God, I hope I never get to work with that person again, and then I do. Yeah, but I mean, it's the play, right? The play dictates what the experience is going to be. I mean, I've been in plays where we didn't do a 5-minute thing. This particular play, we do the 5-minute thing because all 5 of us are desperately relying on each other, the characters in the play. We all desperately want and need from each other. So we check in with each other. And really, it's just, like Chris will tell a joke and, and we're joking. And then as like 3 minutes go by, then we're getting tighter with the hands around here and we're rubbing each other a little bit more and you just feel it.
I'm going to come over to you.
I know.
That's awesome. And by the time it's ready and Chuck says places, we're like in love with each other and we all have goosebumps and we go.
Great if all the shows could get together with a group hug.
Kind of that.
Well, that's to me being part of this Broadway community is I feel that it's a very small community, and I'm just
As
so
a Brit, I really
honored
do
and
feel that.
grateful.
Yeah.
But working with Dan Lauria, I mean, I've known Dan for a long time. He was my pimp on One Life to Live. Oh yeah. So we already have that sort of. We have pimp on cable. That established connection. Between us, not just from having worked together, but having worked together and liked each other very much. So there's a history there. So that definitely does inform the play, I think.
Oh, sorry, go
There's
ahead.
a different kind of production in doing like Glengarry, Glen Ross.
Yeah.
That was a production where there was very little contact before
Yeah.
the show. I mean, we'd talk to each other and be polite to each other, but that is such an alienated bunch of guys, and everybody's angry and everybody's upset through the whole show, basically. And so there was very little bonding, and it really worked. I mean, it had to.
That's the same when I did the Homecoming. Yeah, it's the same.
Yeah, I mean,
Isolation,
there's just that kind of angst on the stage that has to be there. So, I mean, we were friendly off stage, but there was no 5-minute hug.
Couldn't you have the group hug in Glen, the 5-minute hug? I love this new phrase. This fabulous. In Glengarry, Glen Ross, and still
Sure.
have the alienation. Do you know what I mean? Must it be that you have a disconnected relationship with somebody off stage that you, in order to have it on stage? I don't
It was
think
never-
one does, but wasn't spoken.
No,
but,
no,
but
and it
couldn't
was
you
never
do-
set up that way. It was just, I think, just the nature of the piece.
Right.
And the nature of the different performances that guys gave is that it just lent itself to that.
And you were respectful of
Yeah.
each other in some way.
And maybe it wasn't that way for the other guys.
Maybe.
it was just me, because I was really the only victim in the play. The guy who gets taken.
But the other guys were competing. I mean, it's a play
And
about brutal
relentlessly.
competition.
Yeah.
And so you may have been more of a target, but they're all targeting each other all the time.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, as we're talking about the relationship, we've been talking about the relationship certainly between the actors and between the actors and the audience. Let's talk a little about the relationship with the director. You're saying, you know, you're in the room, you've got 4 weeks where it's just you guys with the director, then you've got whatever the preview period, and then the director goes away. So what do you enjoy when the director is there, and what do you enjoy when the director is not there? I wonder if you can talk a little about that.
I hate when the director goes away.
Really?
I've never not liked, I don't mind not having rehearsal from 12 to 5
Right.
every day. I like when that part kind of goes away, but I do like having, I do miss the director being around. I get really reliant on the director, I just do.
Tommy Kail has never gone away. He came to the show again last night, and we were going out to celebrate Dan's birthday afterwards, and he came to the show and gave me notes afterwards. And I love that. He never, he used to say, I'll see you guys later, you know, when he directed In the Heights, and he would go over to Heights and, you know, watch the show, and then he would come over to us. I agree. I
love it.
I love when he comes back.
I think
it keeps it alive and fresh in that growing sort of organism.
We've had a director, you know, I mean, there's been directors where we were going, God, is he in the house?
That's
tonight?
what I was going to It depends.
I'm glad
it
he's not
depends.
in the house tonight. I don't
Yeah.
really want to, don't tell him I'm not here.
Because of your performance, or you're just not ready?
No,
to-
Relationship.
there are directors you love and there are directors you don't love. And I mean, it's never unanimous, but a lot of times it's kind of consensus.
We, with Daniel Sullivan is directing Good People. He's fantastic, brilliant, wonderful. It's interesting to work with different directors because you can love them and they can be so different from each other. But when we were maybe a couple days. We had at least almost a week of previews left, and he was like, one day in rehearsal, this is it, and we were like, what? You know, because you have a certain dependence on the director that you trust.
That's kind of cool, though.
It was kind of cool, but he
throwing you
was
out of a
like,
nest.
I don't think he wants to be around when the reviewers start showing up. He has a lot of other things to do, whatever. But it was maybe 3 or 4 days before we thought he would be gone that he left, and we felt a bit like, oh my God. You know, when you trust the director, you kind of want them there. And so every time he comes back, we're so grateful, and he almost, I think, pulls himself away because you get dependent on him in a certain way. Because you want somebody to check in after 2 months to see where we've gone awry, you know what I mean?
Take out the improvement.
Exactly.
I do
Do you know what I
I
mean?
do like the sculpting that a
Yeah.
director does.
Oh,
I
Yeah.
love it so much.
I do too.
I never went to acting school, so I was a terrible student and I hated authority. And the only people that I ever really looked up to and respected were my directors. And so I really love them being around. And they're the only people I'll really listen to.
Yeah.
So I like when they come back and tinker with it. I feel
And
like
they
I'm
have the
actually
third
good
eye,
at
they
something.
have
Yeah.
Right, but there's a difference, I think, between being codependent and,
Yeah.
you know, and having to have somebody there all the time and all of that. But I love the sculpting and the tinkering too. And Tommy he won't create a codependent relationship with anybody. I mean, he isn't there all the time. He's there enough, and we know that he will be stopping in to talk about it and reshape it and,
That's
you know,
kind of
take out
about
the
affection,
improvements.
too, though.
It
Tommy's
is
that kind of guy.
absolutely about
You know,
affection.
that's his deal.
Yeah, for sure.
And the sign of a really great director. Because the sign of a great director is one who is prepared to let you fly.
Right.
Somebody allows you to fly, but is also there at a certain point
Yes.
to guide you
Right.
back into
This way.
Right, it's like you're walking down a line and somebody's there to say, oh, you're off course, and then you get yourself back on course. But it's you that gets yourself back on course.
Right.
They're not doing it for
The thing that I miss about a director it not being there is having an arbiter. Because sometimes, I mean, when there are people, I mean, actors are human beings,
Yeah.
and everybody has to kind of look out for themselves in a certain way. And there are some actors that insecurity gets the better of them, and they start being selfish on stage. And that's where a director is a big help, because you can go, you know, I mean, I'm not going to fight him on stage, but I wish somebody would say, you got to back off of that particular place, so that you can allow the other, the regular synergy that was there before to exist. If somebody starts taking over the play, then that gets rough.
I'm working with a stage manager now that I've worked with once. My only other experience on Broadway. I'm very lucky. He's awesome, Chuck Means, and he'll just say, and we just opened last week, so if they're already saying stuff, and he'll just say, "Scene 2, 3 minutes over. Just letting you know."
Yep.
4 minutes long.
Yep.
And you know, like we're always walking this thin line of this artistic sense of what we're doing and the professional sense of knowing
Right.
what we need to do
Right.
too.
Absolutely right.
And
yeah.
and that's being a professional, and
Yes.
you have to have that.
Yes.
And we can do both.
Yes.
And I like the little check-in, like, you know, I think that's a good diplomatic way
It's
to do
brilliant.
it.
Yeah,
Before
yeah.
it's over in this
Great
That's a good
stage
stage
manager, great stage managers, Trip Phillips, Diane DeVito. My God, that's exactly right. I'll just say, Di, how much over were we tonight? And she'll say, no, we're right on track, right on track. Yeah. Or, you know, Trip would like write us all a little note, a little memo, and say, just want you to be aware in this scene, blah 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 blah. And that's an amazing gift.
I
mean, in
totally
that way,
agree with that, particularly in a long run. You need that
Yeah.
check-in, don't you? We have Ira Mont. Have you worked with Ira? He's absolutely sensational. He came to me, and this doesn't happen in England, where the stage manager can sort of check in with you and give you little notes. It just goes to an assistant director. So it was kind of a new experience. And he came to me and he said, just the way you're shutting the door at the end of that scene, it's a kind of kudum. And it used to be a boom. And I thought about it and I thought, now, is that note okay? and I thought about it, and he was absolutely right. Absolutely right. Not least because there's a music cue to follow it, and so it was it was a music cue, but it was also a musical beat.
Yeah.
And I was really grateful, and I thought, what a brilliant stage manager.
And they've been in the room with us for all those weeks.
Exactly.
Yes,
Gotta
exactly.
give it up
How
for 'em.
different is it in England? I mean, the whole process. I mean, I know that's just too grand a question.
It's kind of more edgy here, and there's more passion, and it's more. I just feel like the luckiest person on the planet to be here. I really, really.
What do you
do.
mean
Nice
by
of you to
edgy?
say.
It's raw. There's a raw feeling. You know, there's a greater cost. There's more to lose. And
Well,
but
y'all
there's
have
also
been
more
at
to
it a lot
gain.
longer.
Yeah, and it's just a very, very exciting celebratory thing being here.
And of
But
course,
I wanted to, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, your one other experience on Broadway, you'd come over with an
With a
English
play that
play.
was already
and it
successful,
was
yeah.
just two
Yes.
other actors, mostly you and Michael Gambon. So it wasn't the same as suddenly interacting with people with different styles and experiences.
Yes, exactly.
I just want to put a pin in what you said, or what you did actually with the note. It's like you didn't just say, why is he telling me this? This is something.
Or say,
done
or
that.
just take it without thinking of it.
Right, you,
So you also have
actually said, wait a minute. Is that you stopped
And thought about it.
and you thought about it instead of just, you know, how sometimes, I mean, I'm sure you guys do this too. It's like, yeah. Okay, thank you.
No more
You know,
notes,
it's like, right.
please.
But like the truth is, if you really stop and really, if the idea is to make it better and to make it is to listen, because we don't know, we can't see, we don't have eyes in the back of our head. We need someone else. I mean, that's why I love the director, is because I can't see what I'm doing.
Exactly,
There's-
it's the third eye.
and there's
yeah.
guidance, and it's like, you know, to do that with your stage manager too is just.
And if you feel like you don't have someone you trust to do that, then it's human nature that we will start to leave the character that we're playing and be the third eye outside.
Not
Right.
good.
Policing
Not
each
good,
other,
yeah.
and that's the
And
worst
start to
thing to
edit
do.
We don't know when
Yeah.
we're being.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't know that we're being indulgent. I agree that there are actors that definitely know when they're being indulgent. Sometimes you're being a run of a play and you don't.
lose
know,
sight
you lose
of-
sight of it. And gosh, you know that expression. I'd watch him read the dictionary.
Yeah.
It's just an expression. You know what I mean? I mean, it is. I mean, I love Jeffrey Rush. I would watch him read the dictionary, but not really. You know what I mean? Like, I want the play to come across.
That's why I was so grateful
Exactly.
to Herb when he said to me, no, honey, 3 minutes over. You're indulging. You know, it's like, stop. But it's true.
But
And
it is
sometimes we just get caught up in that moment of that loving it so much, and then it's all of a sudden it's not necessarily good for the audience, and you are reading the.
But that's what's so difficult about it, because, you know, to me the thing is, you know, we were talking about how great it is when it's great, when it's real, when we are in the moment and all these wonderful things. And then that is the worst thing that happened to you the next night, that you were in the moment the night before. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, exactly.
Because
I know, it's
now
terrible.
you have some allegiance to what it was, and you have to let it go and be something different. And that's what's hard when you're trying to know whether you're indulgent or not, because you want to be freed from any rhythm
Right.
that ever worked. Or it's not good, because it's not
Right.
about how you said it, it's where you said it from. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Exactly
So
right.
that's the thing that's so difficult. I was just thinking about this the other night. I'm like, I want to be free to let myself experience something and not feel that I have to be a part of this rhythm, because that'll destroy whatever was good. However, am I now being indulgent? I mean, you're always riding that line. It feels like
still gotta-
surfing
you
or
gotta
something.
play
And
your
that
position.
becomes
Right.
more and more confusing as the run goes on in your head.
Absolutely.
Your head starts to distort on the text and,
Right.
and how you're communicating with somebody. And that's when you need the director to come in and say, because
Right.
But this is
you
the
can lose
thing.
sight of it.
To me, that's like, it's just sitting here with you guys talking about this right now in this moment, the excitement and the aliveness of it, to me. Of
I
just
never do this.
even
I don't.
you should do this more, Tommy. You're
do
good
this
at
all the
this.
time.
Good.
I hang with the carpenter.
Yeah, me too, actually.
But the excitement of talking about this. I mean, I will be informed tonight on my performance
Sure.
off of having been with you guys
Yeah, it's
today.
great.
I will. And it's like, that's true. It's like you try to recreate what that thing was that you had last
you
night.
can't,
it's like
and you try, and then you simulate it, and
you're
that
out of
doesn't
the
work
moment.
either. Yeah.
at the moment.
Well, we've been working backwards. We all started with audience. We've talked about working with your fellow company members. We've talked about the director. I'd like to talk about your relationship to the author, because very often we hear that it's appropriate for actors to talk to the director and the director to talk to the author. You have all worked or are working in new pieces. And I'm curious as to how much interaction you get with the author. Do you desire more interaction with the author, perhaps, than you get?
I think it varies piece to piece, like most everything does. I think in a smaller piece, it's probably helpful. I mean, I think you probably have a little bit of an advantage in being close to the author. In the bigger pieces, with like a big musical like this, Terrence McNally started it, and then Brian. Brian is our new guy who's done more. And it's been a real process of trying to put those two styles together, and to honor the stuff that Terrence did, and still be open to the new stuff. So that's been bizarre, actually, to have two completely different authors.
And you've worked on that show for a long time, too.
I played the boy when we started.
And very well, I might add.
I think 5 or 6 years ago.
No.
Is when the process started. And the one thing in the musical situation is that we have the musical guys there all the time. Mark and Scott are there all the time. They were there last night. And, for guys like Spider-Man, I mean, Bono's never there. That's got to be incredibly hard. But for the music input of things, that's been terrific working with those guys. They're great musicians, and ask questions of them and how they want things and how much leeway I have, and they give me a lot. It's nice.
I love having the writer there. I've been lucky to work on a lot of new plays, and I love hearing where they're coming from, and they all speak differently. Some of them aren't
Right.
directors, a lot of them aren't, and you just hope you have a director to put you on action to be able to decipher what they're saying. But it's incredibly valuable to have Stephen Girgis talk in his own language, which is the language that these people in his plays talk. It just adds more to the. I know where he's coming from.
That's
I
exactly
love it.
true.
Yeah,
I love
Eric Simonson was with us the entire time, and he's also a director. So it wasn't like, Tommy Kail separated us out from Eric, or Eric separated us from, it was everybody together, and having him in that room, and we would throw out ideas. I mean, and this is a new American play, like you're talking about. It's like, what happens, we'll try something and he'll say, no, that doesn't work, or we'll try something else and he'll say, yes, that does work. So the communication and the energy exchange among everyone, I think really was incredibly exciting, and goes back to that passion and that intimacy. It was fantastic.
And some writers can't be in the room that much. Some
Yeah.
writers have to get. I remember when we were doing Hurly Burly. It had been 20 years since it had been done, and David was in the room for a lot of it. And then there came a point where he needed to just go away because it wasn't quite happening the way he needed it to happen in that moment. We just hadn't found it yet. And I'll just never forget, it was awesome having him. And again, you know, you ask him about Eddie and Phil and all these characters, and he's talking about real people in his life that he based these people on. So it's an incredible source. And I remember Ethan and I being in the middle of a scene and in rehearsal, and David just getting really red, and we took a break, and we were like, "What's up, man? You okay?" And he said, "I just know that the violence has to happen there." And you know, we're 2 weeks into rehearsal, and we found an incredibly violent moment, but not for like another 2 weeks.
He wants
Right.
result, yeah.
And sometimes,
I gotta wait for
so I gotta go get a coffee. Yeah,
Well, but that's also an issue of when it's a new play versus a play that's been done, is being revived, and the author has certainly seen it and liked how it worked the first time around,
Right.
and it wants it to be there faster. I mean, is there
Mantello-
a difference between new plays and
Joe
revivals?
Mantello was on the line with David Mamet, and he says, "So David," he says, "you got anything to tell me about this play?" David says, "I like it." That was it. And we saw David opening night. That was it. Really? Yeah.
Wow.
I mean,
Harold
well,
Pinter
it's a
was like
pretty
that.
perfect play. You know.
You could ask Harold Pinter a question about his own play and he wouldn't know the answer.
Oh, interesting.
You know, I remember when I did The Room and with him, which was the first play he ever wrote, and my character is sort of half responsible for kicking a woman out of the place that she's living in. And I remember saying to Harold, "Do you think my character does this deliberately?" And he went, "Oh, no, I don't think so." And then it came to the final run in the rehearsal room, and we did the run. He came up to me at the end and he said, "Do you know, I think you could be right." And he'd written it.
Right.
That's
And he
cool.
just-
Well,
It's so cool.
I think there are authors who
There are.
put the
It's like a
situation on
message
the
from
thing and then
above, yeah.
they see it come to life in front of them.
Yeah.
I was listening to what Bobby was saying and sitting in the room with David Lindsay-Bear and Dan Sullivan, which I think is also a really important thing when you're working on a new play, is the relationship between the director and the playwright. I think that's crucial to make it a good experience. They have a fantastic relationship, so they trusted each other, so it was really, really, really great. But I used to look at David and be like, this has got to be killing you. That first 3 weeks when we could not get our lines for anything. I mean, this is not
That's going to be the hardest time for a playwright.
We are
Paraphrasing
because we're
and
paraphrasing,
ad-libbing.
and it's
My
horrible.
favorite thing to do is,
You know?
I always do it every play, is I go, "But this sounds better." I do it once just to get a reaction from the writer.
Right. You know, and that was actually interesting for me when working with the playwright, sitting there for every single rehearsal, because I felt like, you know, normally in theater, you know, the play is, the words are it's like the Bible. Do you know what I mean? And you take for granted that it's right? And then if it's not working, it's your fault as the actor. That's what you're living up to, is what it is. You know, in television, I mean, we're on a television show. If it's not working, the first time it comes out of your mouth, you change it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But in the theater, that's the mark of a good actor, is that I make this, however ridiculously it's written, work. Or I'm not good. That's what I learned. And so it was bizarre to me that before we even got it right, we had a playwright right there that would say, if anything wasn't working right away, he would just change it. And I used to be like, no.
Yeah, hang on a
Give
second.
us a
hang on
second.
Let's
Let me get there.
let me try and
I know
grind
you
through
have
this
20
once
other
or
great
twice.
ideas, but I'm so in love with what you sent me first that I read. Let me find my way there first.
And they also sat at the computer or the typewriter or the
Right.
whatever,
Yes.
and they heard it a particular way.
Yes.
It's like, that's why I don't mind line readings. I say to somebody,
Oh, yeah.
I'm not getting it, I'm not getting it.
Right.
Tell me how you
Right.
heard it.
Right. Yeah.
Say it to me so I'll fill it. Let me hear what you heard. And then if it's not working and I can't make it work, then we can talk about it.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like everybody working as hard as they possibly can on what they've done, and then if it doesn't work, then you talk about it.
Right.
And you're so right about, you know, it's so the use of having a relationship with a writer as an actor, because you're absolutely right that you hear the way they speak and the rhythms that they speak in, and it informs you
does.
about the character that you're
Always.
playing. Always.
Like the funniest things ever was Lanford Wilson. I was in a play of Lanford's, and he was my total mentor. I met him when I was 21 years old. He was in the audience of a play I was in, like a equity backstage open call thing that he came to see, and got me involved with Circle Rep, and that became like school for me. And I was lucky enough to be in a new play of his about 15 years ago, and he was hysterical in rehearsal because Lanford was a really good actor. He could act his own plays, and he loved doing it. And so you would do something, and he would just, you knew, he would go, why is he, what, and you'd go, okay, what, and he'd come in, and then he'd act it out.
Right.
And that's like a totally different, they don't all do that.
No,
You form, again, this communion in the rehearsal room that you go, it's okay, and that was the way he had to do it, and you could.
But you couldn't have all your characters in the play be Lanford Wilson.
Hey man, I would have paid to see it. I heard him once. I remember he did the Burn This. We were talking about Burn This one night. Maybe like the one of the top 3 performances I've ever seen. That thing, and him do that whole opening monologue when Malkovich comes in. He did it one night, pissed drunk, and then he did the whole thing, and he crashing into everything, and we were like, why the hell did you need John Malkovich? Wilson could have done it. Great. He could act his stuff.
Yeah, but that brings up another thing to me, is about flexibility. How flexible are we? And how important is it that we stay flexible and, just like using whatever works. It's like, oh, great, man, that's great. I'll take that, I'll use that, I'll incorporate that. So that there's never any, to remove defensiveness or fear or
It's
the ultimate.
Getting out of your comfort zone.
Totally.
Again, I go back
so
to
open.
Glengarry.
Yeah.
When my agent pitched it to me, and I said, I can't do a part that small. I'll just die. I'm just, he's only on stage for about 12 minutes out of the piece, and I go nuts.
Which one was this?
This is Glengarry.
Oh, right.
But this,
Great scene.
what they said was, you should try this because this is such a different thing for you.
And you
Because
surprised everyone.
I was so used to being leading man, a musical leading man. I'm comfortable there. And now I'm playing this kind of guy who disappears, really. And it was the best thing for my career that I've probably ever done. It was amazing.
I did Oleana. Harold Pinter directed it in London. And when the script first came through, Mamet had underlined the emphasis of where he wanted, rhythmically his syncopated sort of rhythms to go. And we'd read the play and everything, and Harold said, I'm not too sure about this. These things. And there was this heated exchange that went on for weeks between David Mamet and Harold Pinter over this. With Harold asking David Mamet to remove the emphasis because it's restricting the actors just for the rehearsal process. And David Mamet got very, very heated about this and didn't like it at all. But finally, he did. He removed all the emphasis. We went through the whole rehearsal process. We opened it, and just for myself, I went back one night and I looked at the original script, and we were doing word for word what he had underlined, because it was such brilliant writing that the rhythm,
It's like jazz.
the music,
But you had to find your way there.
But
You
we
didn't
had
want to
to
be
have-
told.
That's what Harold wanted to give us the freedom to do.
Well, it makes a difference too.
It makes
to
a
be able
difference.
to, you got to go through the process.
Yep.
You can't just be handed the result.
That's right.
But it's so interesting because it's so parallel to life for me. And, I have been incredibly resistant to process, just in life. And it's like, you have to go through a process all the time.
Yeah.
And there is tremendous excitement in going through that. I mean, that must have been incredibly difficult. But there
you end
is
up with more satisfaction in the process than in the result.
and a deeper, complex life and play.
Yeah.
No matter what the piece is, that incredible being willing to put yourself out there in that process. And I think that's something that, as we talk about this, that we do that as actors. I think we do. I think that's part of the magic of what we do. I think it's part of the ability that we have, or the willingness we have to show that to other people, or talk to people in life about that, and then they get to come see the piece. And
You have to be a bit crazy, don't you?
and
You have to be very courageous, but you have to be very crazy.
and a bit crazy, but incredibly willing and open, and
Right.
life is never more exciting, I think, for me.
I agree, yeah.
I have to let those be the final words. Thank you so much. This has been incredibly
Wow, that was
exciting.
That.
And thank you for joining us. These programs are brought to you from the Graduate Center at the City University of New York in partnership with our friends at CUNY TV. On behalf of the American Theater Wing, I'm Howard Sherman. Thanks for joining us for another edition of Working in the Theater.
I'm Ted Chapin, chairman of the American Theater Wing. The Wing has played a vital role in New York's theatrical life for more than 60 years. Best known for creating the Tony Awards, we stand for excellence, but we also support education in the theater, and our work reaches beyond Broadway in New York. The Working in the Theater television programs, which are supported by the Annenberg Foundation and the Dorothy Strelsin Foundation, are unequaled forums for discussions with today's most creative artists. Downstage Center's in-depth radio interviews were created in conjunction with XM Satellite Radio and can be heard on our website. For people who are starting their careers, we have a 2-week boot camp for aspiring actors from colleges across the country called Springboard NYC. And our theater intern group provides a forum for young people who are starting their careers to build a professional network. All of the American Theater Wing's educational and media programs are available for free on demand from our website, americantheaterwing.org. Thanks for your interest in the Wing, and thanks for watching.